Welcome back to Take a Leap and Transform, a Neurodiversity journey. I'm your host, Joseph K. Muscat. Are you ready to take a leap with me? As we embark on this journey, let me introduce myself as Malta's Neurodiversity consultant, Joseph K. Muscat. I've been pioneering in neurodiversity awareness within Malta's business landscape for the past 3 years. During this time, I've engaged in speaking, coaching, conducting workshops with companies and organizations like Betson, BNI, BNI, should I say, and FHRD. This year marks the introduction of Neurodiversity Week of Malta, where we present insights from incredible guests about neurodivergency within the workplace. Now let's leap into the interview. During this time, to share his experience and expertise with working with neurodivergencies, I am pleased to be joined by Dragan Donkov. Experienced coach focused on building awareness, clarity, and confidence. Dragan's work with leaders, managers, and employers in both corporate and non-profit sectors, supporting their growth and development. With a background in managing a significant employee assistance program, he founded Carbo Consulting, providing coaching and training services globally. Welcome, Dragan.
Hi, Joseph. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and being a part of this wonderful week and to talk about coaching with neurodivergent talent. And I want to start off with, in your overall time and experience, why is coaching for neurodivergency an important support system in both their personal and professional growth?
I think a lot of people who face the problem, especially at a later age of their life, they've been lacking support for many years, and when they are at the workplace and they discover that they are part of this growing community of people with that I would say lovely kind of differences, which I'm enjoying witnessing more and more. Sometimes they're lost, and also the business is lost. So the coach can be the one that can support both the business and the individual in this journey, finding a common language and building the skills to stay on top of things and function in the best possible way. And I must say something here. I'm not fully qualified coach working with ADHD or anything, but as a coach, I found quite a lot of people in my practice going through such experiences. And based on my previous experience and knowledge, I managed to help them to a certain extent. And that's a very interesting point, because you can use both general coaches, people who are not specifically trained, and also very, very niche qualified coaches to help at the workplace. So they're both helpful as professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're both very helpful. And sometimes, you can have a coach that has that specific understanding of ADHD, and then you can have a coach who may not, but at least knows how to adapt to that individual and has an appreciation and understanding for their ADHD. It's a challenge in regards to having a coach who doesn't want to acknowledge or recognize that person's neurodivergency. So that's the kind of situation we want to avoid. And you've had that experience with working with individuals and being flexible and having that understanding and appreciation. And I think that's what, sets the bar in regards to good qualifying coaching. It's about adapting to the individual and understanding where they're coming from, which from what I've gathered is what you're doing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And to be honest, just to share something, I've noticed people that had the opportunity to work with a very solution focused and task focused coaches, and they didn't manage. Because it's not about how we do things, it's about how we think about things and how we see things and how we see processes, which if we go to with very task orientated focus about, okay, we need to improve the way how you do something, it's not going to work straightforward.
Yep, absolutely. So, Dragan, in your practice, you deal with many senior level professionals. What does this reveal about the increasing issue of insufficient support for neurodivergence?
What amazed me first was like how many neurodivergent people actually managed to go very high in the business. I was pleasantly surprised, not that I had any expectations, I just didn't know about that that people without support can reach there. But sometimes at the senior level, things become a little bit more difficult because the pressure is much higher, and the expectations are very high, and they find themselves, not knowing what to do. So I've met people who did not disclose to anyone in the company that they're neurodiverse people, and no one knew, and they couldn't understand where certain behaviors or experiences are coming. And with some of them actually had to work in the direction of, okay, what do you need to happen so you can share with the people around you that you are, having that way of thinking. And there's a lot of shame and guilt and stigma around because some people might see it as a weakness, but actually, in some cases, I found it to be a gift because it brought to the team a new way of thinking. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges when no one knows about this. And probably you follow research more than me, but I see many more people having a proper diagnosis at a later stage in their life, and it comes as a big surprise to them. Honestly, if I go and test myself, I'll be diagnosed with something because I struggled all my life with education and I was a very poor performer. Then I found my own way. And then when I talk to my clients, I see that they did exactly the same. So they found their coping ways and they're excellent with education, with work, with performance, with the way of thinking. So, and I think what's going to happen is we're going to see more and more people entering the job market or diagnosed because the services at schools and university increased a lot. So we have more people that with awareness and they're entering the market. So companies really need to work on this.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And the other aspect is, it's always interesting because particularly when we take a look, you mentioned pressure. I guess your pressure is definitely one of the key elements in there. But when we see from an educational point of view to career level, when managing one's neurodiversity in conjunction with their executive function, as soon as there's more responsibility, more of that pressure being put upon them, and more of the things that they have to be able to juggle and manage, is this when the cracks start to show and when they start to have those really serious difficulties. And, there's also the trajectory of they've developed coping mechanisms, but then those coping mechanisms again start to deteriorate because of that they're not knowing how to manage or how to adjust their coping mechanisms to these new situations or these new added responsibilities and pressures. So with that said, when they come to you, actually, before we get to that, you mentioned conflicts, and I think this is an interesting aspect, because we've seen this through the week in elements about dealing with conflicts, and particularly in regards to the behavior. The behavior is not suitable or not matching to what the work environment is, or to the particular colleagues. What are the particular challenges that they're facing in regards to behavior and conflict?
What I've noticed is that different working habits, that's one of the conflicts, and they do not fit with the norm. For example, we do this that way. So that's been seen as a challenging behavior sometimes. Okay, we've been doing this, A, B, C, D, but I can do it the other way around and I still get the same result. But there's a resistance, and then the conflict starts. Okay, why do you need to change it? I need to change it because it's going to work for me. And then the pressure, no, you cannot change it. We've been doing it so many years like that, and we know that this is effective. Mine is also effective. Yes, but it's different. And that's one of the first conflicts. So the expectation that you don't deliver the same way like the others because you're taking a different route. And it was a real case when actually people had to really discuss and understand and accept that I am like that. and the other person needed to accept that the employee is like that. And they cannot change it. So that's one of the conflicts. Sometimes, how they communicate and not the lack of boundaries, but maybe the impulsiveness, sometimes it comes in the picture. They don't have a negative intention. They just would like to contribute, but that does not kind of fit in the norm of the company, which again, we don't know if the norm is correct anymore. But because we've been doing this that many years, we assume that kind of behavior is the norm. So they're a little bit more spontaneous, and sometimes the focus shifts from one side to another, or there's the tunnel focus, the hyper focus on one thing, and they can do one thing at a time, and they're expected to do many things at the same time. Even I don't know how people cope, actually, because even if you don't have any problem, focus is one thing. You can't really focus, and this is something we challenge even with people who don't have any issues. Focus on one thing at a time. But they are expected to multitask, and because they are not, they are seen as underperformers. Doesn't matter that often the one task they do excels anyone that is doing multitasking. So the product, the result that comes at the end is much better because they really put their mind in it.
Right. This reminds me of a personal experience working in a workplace where I was focused on the aspect of what I was hired for, frankly, photography. And then I was told that I was spending too much time on photography and not focusing on my other responsibilities. And it's like, well, which is it that you want? You want me to focus on the photography, you want me to focus on something else. And then when I focus on something else, because again, I can only focus on one task at a time, I'm then being told that I'm focusing too much on the marketing aspect and not enough on the photography. So which is it? Am I underperforming? Am I overperforming? Or you're not communicating to me clearly what you want? So it creates this challenge of and conflict between the manager and employee, where the employee is working, but the manager is not understanding how they work and not supporting them in how they work, and not understanding and not being clear in regards to what exactly they're looking for.
I see your point very clear here. Many years ago, I used to work as an HR in a big pharmaceutical company back home. And I had the manager. She came to me and showed me, I would like to punish this employee. And funnily enough, this employee became one of my best friends after. And he has his own challenges. And I said, why, I need to punish someone? That doesn't work like that. She told me, because I asked him, do you want to do this job? And he said no. And she was shocked. I went to speak to him. And she told me, listen, she asked me, do you want to do the job? And I didn't want to do the job. If she tells me, please do the job, I will do it. But she asked me if I want to do it. So for many people, it's black or white.
Right.
And because we don't communicate with them what expectations we have, and we don't know how to communicate, because he was very easygoing, tell him what to do and he'll do it. He was very good in his job. She literally asked him a question and he gave her the right answer. I don't want to do the job. He just didn't say, but then I'll do it anyway. And she couldn't expect. And because she wouldn't expect anyone to say no. But very often people see it black and white. And that's also not bad, because if you learn how to communicate this way, some things are very easy. There's no underlying meaning. There's nothing. There's a lot of clarity. If I don't like something, I don't like it. If I like it, I love it.
Right. But that also comes, I said, to a communication aspect as well, is that the fact is, if you ask someone if they would like to do it, then they say no, then you have to accept that because you did ask them if they would like to do it, right? And there's this inflexibility in regards to again, their management style, this lack of understanding of communication, as well as as being a leader in this aspect. And this is, and
Mm-hmm.
why punish someone when you ask them if they would like to do it? So I mean, and this is particularly, I bring this up as well because this creates, you know, when we take a look at neurodivergency, in particular, when we take a look at on how we communicate with language, if you're not specific, if you're not precise, and you're not clear about what you're communicating, particularly when we take a look at, say, someone who's autistic, where they cannot read the nuances in communication, depending on what level they are in their on
Mm-hmm.
the spectrum, and they're also, you know, can be very based on how they interpret what's being communicated to them. They're very to the point because they take it very literally. Then this causes a lot of particular conflict in the workplace. And we're seeing it, you know, a lot of cases where things are leading to tribunal because of this poor communications aspect.
Mm-hmm. And you don't need to be a neurodivergent to have such issues, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and I'm seeing it. It's the lack of clarity, the vague language, the lack of sharing of what I expect in general from you. Um, it causes a lot of misconceptions and a lot of communication issues and conflicts. And then it creates this barrier for people to ask actually what is expected from them. So that's
Mm-hmm.
another problem. If I don't ask what's expected from me, I'm a less of a professional. So I should be, you know, understanding. But to be honest, some requests, even in my experience working with organizations before, within organizations, sometimes you don't understand the request because the language the other person uses is usually the way how they understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need to have we learn differently, you know. Some people want to read and watch, other people want to try. So learning how to give instructions and explain things, it's a key element in general. When I'm seeing it even from school, sometimes my daughter comes and tells me this is the best teacher we ever had, and this is another one that we didn't. You know, we don't like the way how they teach
Mm.
because they don't translate it to the level and the language people we understand, the students we understand, and that goes to work as well.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of work there.
Yeah, it is. And again, it comes back to learning how to properly communicate, to adapt to that individual, being a leader and being a coach to those individuals as well. So
Mhm.
I'm curious now, you know, when they when an individual who's coming, who's neurodivergent, who's seeking coaching, and they come to you, what types of support are they looking for, and how does that support look like?
Mm. Often people like that come to me as someone that has a behavior that needs to change. Because I don't know, but I got the name of working with, you know, a little bit more challenging clients.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I don't work with anyone who, you know, just needs to grow, but it happens. And then when I dive a little bit more, I understand that there's more and no one knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I understand that even the client doesn't know, I will probably suggest they look for a professional, which is the kindest thing you can do. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's for them to gain more clarity and to read and know and find the proper support. And I'll probably support the client in working around things. Um, what kind of support? Usually, you know how interesting is they come with time management issues.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the classical topics. Time management issues, time management, and they can't organize themselves. And then you realize they just organize themselves differently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Um, what really helps the company, especially if they never had experience with this, is understanding what the issue is
Mm-hmm.
and what the needs of the person are, or what this person particularly needs from the company, and how they can meet one way or another. But overcoming the stigma of, okay, I need to express this, I need to tell them, and even the client getting used to this is not an easy process. And very often coaching is limited to a number of sessions, and the sessions are not long enough to support this transition. So what companies need is a lot of education. And we went through this process with mental health problems, you know, from the time when people were saying, no, we don't have people with mental health problems in our company, to, wow, let's train our managers how to understand mental problems, how to help their employees. So the same needs to go there, because as I said, more people are going to enter the workplace with that kind of experiences. So I think a lot of education is needed there, and then personalized individual support to those who need, because not everyone needs.
Yeah.
That's my experience as well.
Yeah. Being people-centric and personalized. And it's always funny too, it's not the first time I hear that nobody in our workplace has mental health problems. So naive. And it reminds me when I started entering the field of diversity and inclusion for neurodivergent talent within the workplace. And I attended one of my first big conferences and starting to introduce and network the concept to basically decision makers, my target market. And one of the individuals from a big company, HR, said, neurodiversity, oh, we have nobody. We're a big family. We have nobody in our organization like that. We know what everybody
Mm-hmm.
has. And it's like, do you really? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's there's still that a barrier, that naive, that unwillingness to recognize that there really are employing people, and it's a big company, and then they're leaving people at the door but not bringing them into the
Yes.
workplace and creating this inclusive environment. It's really quite surprising that you still hear that those barriers in place.
Mm-hmm.
And
And speaking about the family,
mm,
I used to ask them, so you don't have anyone in your family
mm,
who went through this experience? Yeah, their personal family. Yes, I had this uncle who was a bit weird, So, okay, so you're telling me that in your family you had, but in your company of 300, 500 people, you have no one. How come? How does this possible?
right. That's a good comparison. That's a really good comparison. So we're observing a recurring theme this morning. Um, when I was interviewing Daphne and Dietrich from, I'm gonna mispronounce their company name, uh, which I'm not even going to try, unfortunately. Where criticism and conflict arises from behavior not aligning with what others deem normal and proper. On an individual basis and from a company viewpoint, how can coaching be employed to address in favor of promoting and understanding neurodiversity within the workplace?
It's a very good question. And I believe one of the things that we can do is when people have access to coaching in their companies, especially if they have internal coaches, the coaches are trained how to recognize and work with that particular issues, and kind of make a judgment if they need to get someone who is even more qualified than them into this topic. And another thing that is very important before offering any coaching to people, understand their needs. Because just dumping them for coaching with, hey, I want to fix this person, it's not going to work, because they might not need coaching. They just might need the conversation, a better structure, flexibility in the structure, And from my experience, even with mental health, those who are not able to work, they will not be in the working market. So people that are already working in the company reach the level, they function, they just need small adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the company should look into what we can adjust and where the coach can help, and what else do we need? Do they need mentoring? Another thing is, okay, if you have neurodiverse people, train them to coach and mentor other neurodiverse people. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
They will understand the problem. They just need to keep the boundary, not to project their own experiences, which might be
Right.
relevant or non-relevant,
Mm-hmm.
on the other person, but they will understand what the other person is going through. And they also can be brilliant coaches for anyone else. Having a different way of thinking
Mm-hmm.
is always a bonus
Right.
in an
Absolutely.
organization.
So then, how, from your experience working with companies, how can we encourage companies to foster and developing internal coaching programs?
In general, this is still a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
Although in Malta there's a big shift abroad, it's much better.
Mm-hmm.
So getting either people from outside who run coaching for you, or people who train your employees how to coach. So the different elements. You can train the managers how to use coaching in their leadership style, or you can train people in the company who can coach and mentor, and they will have the proper skills to do this. There's a big value in coaching and mentoring. That's even by a lot of research. It helps with retention, it helps with growth, it helps with spotting talent. The understanding we still have is coaching is for senior people.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a big mistake. And that's another flaw we have, another big problem we have, because what happens with junior people who are neurodiverse and they don't get any support because they're junior. So they drop from the company, you're losing potential talent, you're not helping them to grow, and that's not really kind to the business, to the people, to everyone. So companies need to understand that support needs to be extended to everyone that have that kind of need. In general, coaching can be extended. Or mentoring can be offered at a much earlier stage when people are joining the company, so they're not alone. They learn how to do the things proper way. And they can be used simultaneously, because the mentor will be someone experiencing the job, and the coach will be the one that can stimulate them to think and be more creative in their own way. So that's, and that brings a lot of value. That really brings a lot of value to the people that are coached and mentored, and to the mentors and the coaches.
So I agree with everything that you're saying there. And definitely, I've trying to get them to recognize that the junior people need the coaching just as, if not more, frankly, than the upper level. Because also, individuals just on, when we take a look at it from a universal design principle basis, we're seeing that the new workforce coming in, and even the older workforce, they may not want to acknowledge it, but they're they if given the opportunity, they would take it, is that they want to have more coaching. They want to have more training. And we take a look at improving productivity, improving retention, hiring and growing within, you need to have that coaching in place. So, and you mentioned, training managers, because I'm a big believer in training managers, but there's always that conflict in regards to managers need to still be focused, and rightly so, on getting their teams to perform, and may not always have all the time to be coaching. So what suggestions can you give in that regards of trying to foster coaching within a company where there is getting managers to have that balance?
When we're talking about managers, we want them to coach as part of to use coaching as part of their leadership skills. So that gives them an extra leadership skill which they can use when they need. We don't want to turn them in coaches. We should not forget that leaders, as everyone, they have their capacity, and there are a lot of expectations. To a team is a live organism, and in a live organism everything happens. And the amount of issues when I work with leaders, notice that they face is enormous. Sometimes they're called in for a lot of things, so they're difficult to set boundaries around where they get involved or not. So expecting them to, I think what we need from leaders is being open-minded, being flexible in the way how they work, and treat everyone individually. Because when they start putting things into shapes and forms and expect everyone to take this shape and form, things don't work. And but he doesn't work like everyone else. Does he work better? Does he work, wrong? No. Does not deliver? No. But I love this. They don't work like the rest. So what's the fear here? I don't know how to control this. I don't know what, when we go retrospectively, the data is showing us that nothing wrong happened. Just the person is different. So understanding the differences between people is the key here. We always teach in leadership, everyone is a whole person, and the whole person, they're very different than everyone else, and that's the beauty of it.
That's interesting. It's just really interesting that it's been a common theme, obviously, because it's Neurodiversity Week, and we're talking about neurodiversity every day with the key wonderful speakers that we've had. Is that it always comes back down to being open-minded, um, creating an opportunity where people can speak freely, and being flexible to who they are and how they operate differently. And there's still that, it's been that common theme, but there's still that you can still see that there's that, because that's a common theme, there's still that resistance out there in regards to that behavior, where one behavior cannot accept and adapt to the other behavior. And this becomes very crucial when we take a look at neurodivergence, because one of the best accommodations that we can provide, particularly in the workplace, is coaching, is mentoring. Yet there's that resistance because of the behavior.
And probably the expectations, how the behavior is going to change. And there's another thing, when people engage coaches and mentors, they expect a fast change of behavior.
You're right.
That doesn't happen even with people who are not challenged in any way or another.
Right.
And this is one of the biggest challenges we face. So we finished the 10 sessions, something's changed, but not everything. And I asked them, how long it took you to learn to do something? 6, 7 months. So what do you expect? We build of habits, and we have our own fear, and everything that does not match with our matrix very often is scary.
Yeah.
Sometimes I see even people who know only one way to go to work. If the road is closed, they panic because they never thought about something else. This is the fastest route, this is the shortcut. And when we switch from system 1 to system 2 thinking, then the learning starts happening. And it's also appropriate for, we're building habits, understanding this, and that if one habit was helpful, or one kind of mindset I had about how people behave 5 years ago, it might not be relevant today where I am, because I operate with 100 more people. My team is much bigger, my system is much bigger, so it's much richer. So what I've learned 5 years is probably no longer relevant here. And that's a scary change for people to understand other people.
Yeah, it's funny because as you're speaking, I'm thinking about conversations I've had in my speaking engagements, in my coaching, and in my workshops, where I always tell people the myth of time. And I purposely call it the myth of time because they fail to realize a couple things: time and percentages. They fail to realize that there is a maturity date towards coaching and training and mentoring, and that maturity date is not going to be when you think it's going to be. It's going to be weeks, months down the road, and sometimes years, depending on the level that you're at. The other aspect, the second aspect to that is the percentage, and I say this, in the aspect of, let's say it's not coaching. Let's say it's is that we send an employee to a training program, and they go to that training program. By the end of that 3-month training program, that they're expected to be masters in that program, for whatever whatever that program is, whether it's software or whether it's people skills, who knows. And I always say to them, well, we have to understand that as much as there's a maturity, there's a percentage. And what's that percentage going to be? Is it going to be 10% improvement? Is it going to be 20% improvement? Is it going to be 60% improvement? It might even be zero improvement, despite the fact they've taken a 3-month course. And the aspect comes to maturity, right? Let's say by the end of the time they finish the course, they're at 25%. In 6 months to 8 months' time, through practicing and reviewing and doing the work of whatever they've learned in the job, that 25% may jump to 30% or 35% or another 60%, depending on where they're at. They always fail to realize those two aspects.
Because a lot of times, and I don't blame them, businesses want a quick return of investment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving my money, I would like to get. But the best cheeses are the ones that mature longer and they're the most expensive. You go in the shop and you say, this cheese is 18 months, this is 12, this is 36. And the wine. So, it's one thing is like having a fresh wine, young wine, and it's another thing having a wine that's been 10, 15 years and managed to mature in a way that it's pleasant to drink. Same thing with people. I mean, I finished university, I knew nothing, honestly. Then you start learning other things. So we expect from young people coming out of education to be masters, and they don't even have habits how to work. Same thing with adults. You send someone to a course, we adults, we learn different. Our retention rate is much lower than probably my daughter at senior school, So this is it. I mean, you have to adapt the expectations and the learning and even the on-the-job learning to where people are and how they learn. So you can't teach someone who is okay with learning and someone who is neurodiverse. You can't teach them the same way. You can't mentor them the same way. You have to understand how they think and what they think. But usually we don't ask them, how do you work? Or we just go assuming that everyone reads books, then sits for a test, and they know. I don't believe in this.
So I completely agree with you because, the question comes down to is how can companies in this regards move away from this perception? Because whether it's someone being promoted, whether it's a new hire, or someone currently in their position, organizations are trying to fit them into a box. And check that box that they fit into that box. But when we take a look, when we look at neurodivergence, where they think and perform differently, when we take a look in regards to addressing and how to be more coaching and mentoring those individuals, how do we get them outside of thinking of trying just to fit them into that box and to develop a more holistic approach?
I think the best way is, and it's very coaching approach, you sit and understand what the person needs, not assume their needs. This is the first thing. And then what they think is going to work for them and what worked in the past, what they need at the moment. And then if you engage people like coaches or specifically train people like you, consultants, to discuss with someone, at the end, accept what the consultant is telling you. When employers send someone to be checked by a doctor, the doctor tells them this is the problem, something like that. You have to trust this. So engage more people who know. Don't apply this general knowledge. Okay, HR knows people. Yeah, fantastic. They're lovely. But HR bump on cases that they don't understand. So explore who can help you. And then start building what they need. Sometimes it needs to be individual. Sometimes it's going to fit with some adjustments in something that you already have. But you understand what to expect. And then the important thing is build the correct expectations. Okay, I'm putting you in coaching, and that's what I expect. Is this adequate? Is this realistic? Or no, because everyone else performs at that level, you should be performing at that level. I had a case many years ago with a person with mental problems, and they do the performance appraisal, and the person has limitations, and they're marked on the performers. And I ask them, okay, do you measure the same way you measure everyone else? So people with different abilities are measured the same way. And they said, yes, we have no other option. So I said, this person will always score on the performer. you don't measure what their abilities are. I mean, I'm sorry, the Olympics are divided. I don't like it, but they are divided, you know. It is the reality time. We measure people according to different abilities. Do I like it? No. Do, you know, athletes with disabilities are paid less? They are. It's not good. So something needs to change there.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't measure people the same way. We can standardize things as much as we can, but we have to be flexible. So even in our expectations, okay, what's performance? Where it is?
So this is this is very insightful. So, and this also segues into this particular question. You know, on a wider observation, based on what you're saying here and how this links together, is what does they say about the disparity between senior level positions and lower level tier employees, where some individuals can seek support and afford it, and where others are not in those circumstances? And with that said, you know, again, it comes back to how can we, you know, to be able to support the lower tiers, how can we create more internal coaching programs to remove this disparity?
By, you know, there's the term democratizing of coaching. Finding, you know, coaching approaches that are available and coaches available for all levels in the organization. I think this is one of the best way. And then when you see a problem, discuss it, identify the intervention, and link this person either with a mentor or with a coach, or having a system of buddies. You know, you can have another colleague who went through similar experience, who is more experienced, and they can buddy you into this. I think the buddy system and the mentoring system are in general brilliant for the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
I often work with clients who come, you know, from different companies, and they have coach and they have internal mentor who knows how to navigate within the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very different experience. The mentor, they meet much less. The coach, they meet much frequent. I mean, the concept of mentoring is not new. It's even in ancient Greece. You know, that kind of mentoring is coming from there. So coaching is an add-on. It's a different perspective to this. And then training, education, that also comes into the picture. I think companies need to invest even more in internal and external coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because the internal coaches will always be part of the system. Doesn't matter if they're coming from a department that you don't work with. There's always going to be a form of bias, which in the regular case of coaching shouldn't be a big problem. They understand the environment better. So
Mm-hmm.
that's an advantage. But the disadvantages, they'll be there. And the internal coaches might, even if they have the great intention to provide safety, the person might not feel safe because it's still linked with the company. You know, that's also so I would say use both internal and external professionals who can help and make people feel safe, because
Mm-hmm.
when they're safe, they will tell you what works and what doesn't.
Right.
Psychological safety comes into the picture. Usually people who have a behavior that is not recognized make mistakes, and they're punished for this. And they're not really taught and guided because of the way how they learn how to overcome this mistake. And then the conflicts start building up and building up more and more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So let's look at it from a different perspective then. When we take a look at bigger companies and smaller companies, again, psychological safety is a common theme that's been throughout this whole entire week. And when we take a look at bigger companies and smaller companies, there's always going to be that issue that we're too small of a company to have a coaching and mentoring program. We don't have the resources of a bigger company.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to that?
It's always been there, even when we started offering employee assistance programs here. Big companies were happy to buy them. They had the funds, they had all the, it wasn't expensive. I see more small to mid-sized company engaging coaches,
Mm-hmm.
which is good. There are funds probably for training that they can use, so that can save some money. But then look at the long term. I mean, we work in a market, we operate in a market which is limited in potential of people. So people have to constantly come from abroad, and that's expensive.
Mm.
And there's another thing. Recently, I was on a conference and they were saying, like, if you replace an employee, it would cost you around 35,000. 10 years was 15,000, that cost. So you give a couple of €1,000 for, improving the behavior, and this employee feels safe and learn. And then you save another 28,000 for getting someone new. And usually this person will become loyal to you and stay. So this is the business logic. You can have a company car and a truck, and yeah, you can maintain it every 100,000 kilometers, but it will break in between. So you maintain it every 10,000 because it does the job. So it's a very similar approach. You just spend time and some resources of improving people. And that's applicable to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And it's funny too, because when we take one of the stats that's out there, and I present this in my speaking engagements and workshops, is the 7% rule. When we take a look at providing reasonable accommodations, the myth out there, again, coaching falls into the category of a reasonable accommodations. So this is a very important aspect to make that linkage. But what we have found through a third-party study is that the cost of providing reasonable accommodations for someone who's neurodivergent, because the myth is always out there, it's too expensive. The cost, the cost is 7% of what it would cost to recruit someone new and go through the whole entire onboarding process and then recruitment procedures. So you mentioned 30,000. Do the math. I won't do the math here because I won't do it on the spot. I won't be able to do it on the spot, should I say? But 7% of 30,000, that's a huge cost saving difference. So providing, an internal coach or funding for an external coach is far more cheaper as a reasonable accommodations from a business expense than to fire that person and to bring someone new.
That's the logic. Not everyone sees it because, and the because here is very simple. People don't have time to sit and think. They want a quick fix.
Right.
And from my experience, quick fix never works. Can you do this? Yes, we can. We can help you. I want this to be fixed quick. Now, you've been having these issues for the past few years. Why do you want to fix it in 3 days? It doesn't work. So I know the business pressures are a lot, but then everyone complains. No talent, people don't want to work with us. People are not happy. They don't feel integrated, or they don't feel belonging to the company. Why? Because you misalign with their values and beliefs. And imagine if a colleague is treated in a way that they're not supported, what the other colleagues are seeing, what the message you're giving. We're having all the policies in the world because we need to have them, but they just stay in a drawer. They stay somewhere electronically, and we just have them there, but we're very proud to have them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it comes back to when we come back to training and coaching managers to be better managers, to coach their teams and to manage their teams. Managers are the center of that team. So however that manager treats a employee or their employees has a huge effect in regards to the culture of that team and how that team's going to treat that other individual. And again, when we've seen, when we take a look at neurodivergent employees, how sometimes they are treated, unfortunately, poorly due to bad leadership, due to bad management and coaching by their colleagues and by their managers for not having this adequate people-centric approach. So what if a company were to come to you today and say to you that we would like to start looking into developing a coaching program for our company? And again, we're looking small to large companies. What advice or what consultancy would you give in how to go about creating that system in place?
The first thing I'll try to understand is why they need this into place, what they want to see different once they have it in place, what resources they have and what expectations they have, what's realistic. Before engaging with them, I need to understand better about what's their mindset, why they're doing this. Is it because they've seen other people doing it and just want to have it in place? So it's another benefit for the employees. Are they really invested in this? Who are the people they can, allocate for this? So do they have potential in people? And the important thing is, are they ready for these people for a period of time not performing the duties they are employed? So, because that's a massive thing. I've seen companies engaging in making a program, and then the participants that needs to be trained on this, they don't come because they're busy with their work. So, the investment is. And so these are the first things I need to understand. And then we see what will work for them. Is it more mentoring? Is it more coaching? Who are the right people? What scope? What kind of interventions? One thing that I notice is companies want the training, and then often we're going to finish the rest. But these coaches need support after. How are you going to support them? Because training is training, but the big questions are going to arise after. So they need supervision. So this is, I would first, I need to understand their why. Why we're doing this? What's the motivation? How much resources they're ready to spend? What the expectations? It's a process. Are they expecting to see great results the first year or the third year? Very often, they actually load experienced managers to become coaches for others. And that doesn't work. Managers have so many other things to do. And they see this as a burden. So there's no enthusiasm in this.
And again, it comes back to that time or percentage thing that I mentioned earlier. The maturity date of that coaching and outcome. So if it's not going to be the managers, who do you recommend then they go to? I mean, I know you mentioned neurodivergent. If someone who's open about their neurodivergency, that could be a perfect candidate. Who else?
I will make it as diverse as possible. So if you're looking for coaches, they don't need to be the greatest experts in the job. If you're looking for mentors, they need to be very good at the job. So, okay, these are the people. Who are the people that have good human skills? Who are the people that are liked and, they interact with others and they're respected and, so I will look into that kind of, who are the people who want to learn from this, who believe into this? Not pinpoint people just, because we would like to have it and I appoint you to go to the course, but I don't have the space and the mindset. So I will help them with this selection, finding the people that usually I like to talk to and, have very good communication, have good boundaries, and then we start from there. And then an interview with each and everyone, understanding their needs, understanding their understanding about what's required from them, and aligning this with the company. There were cases that I told them you can't afford to have internal coaches because you people are very busy. Get someone from outside. They will do the job for you, and that will be much cheaper for you because you cannot stop other people from being engaged in what they do because of, the way how you function. And because no one wants to do it. No one was certain that they would like to jump into this.
That's interesting because I was gonna flip the question in that direction. But before I flip the question in that direction, in either case, you mentioned that people are too busy because of the work who are not seeking the coaching. So in those circumstances, what's the strategy to to get them to come for support?
Mm. Make them okay that 1 hour of the day is not going to ruin everything. I've seen clients that are often offer coaching and they don't come because they are not given space to come for coaching. And that happens even with therapy. You offer them therapy, people don't have time to go for therapy. So normalize it that 1 hour here and there is not going to, break anything. And you shouldn't be feeling guilty about that. So when you send them for training, coaching or mentoring or anything, don't give them extra pressure because they are training. Not to send them on coaching and they constantly check their phone. They need to switch off. They need to be disconnecting from everything and focus on themselves. So that's another reason why people can't learn from training, because they think about something else.
Right. Again, it comes back to, again, a company coming down to those accommodations of being flexible and changing what work looks like and what working hours look like, and allowing for the ability to have an additional break that doesn't interfere with their regular breaks so they can go to the coaching. Now, coming back to where you were going with the time that we have left, you mentioned if internal coaching is not possible, they want to do external coaching. Again, what are the parameters look like for you? I'm sure you're going to coming down to their why and their outcome, for sure, coming on the top of your list.
Yes, why we're doing this, what we would like to achieve, who are the right coaches for this, what experience we're looking into the coach, what accreditations they have. If you look into this, do we need someone who has extensive experience in senior leadership, or we need someone who has very good experience in coaching and had worked with diverse group of people? Do we need someone who needs to stimulate and, excite people, or we need someone who needs to calm down people? Because I had, I had clients saying, we choose you because you really make people feel comfortable and they can slow down and work with you in the process. But that's not going to work for everyone. So really understand what you need. And that's the job of the coach as well, to dive deep and understand and interview, and help the company to formulate kind of a direction. Because most of us as coaches, we're trained to do this, analyze together with the company. And then the company should kind of listen. Because if you hire me to do this, you have to trust my expertise. It might misalign with what you want, but that's the picture we're seeing, and we need to find a way in between for this.
Fantastic. So my last two questions, Dragan. My first question is, can you share with us a story of a client that you worked with who's neurodivergent, and how you were able to help them?
Wow. I'll avoid sharing a story.
Okay.
Because maybe the person that I have in mind will recognize himself.
Sure. However you want to tell it.
But how I help people is, I know it's just the space that you create for them and you hold for them, and work around them feeling comfortable and not judged and open to talk about everything. And even I had clients that were in the same spectrum. I told them, listen, I don't know how to navigate this. Let's see. But they trust you because you're honest with them. And then building in a way that works for them. I had clients that can't sit in an office or in a room. They need to walk. And we walk. Sometimes they just, talk and discuss, and then they make their own things and they reflect after sessions, and that's the learning. So don't push them. I don't push them to achieve something then and there. So if there's nothing at the end of the session, I measure the session after what happened. Usually they continue thinking. So adapting to the way how they think, and not force them to do something that they don't want to do their way. I mean, coaching, we don't really force. And if a coach forces you, that's probably, a strange approach.
Yeah.
we can challenge.
Yeah.
And I have neurodiverse clients, a client at the moment that loves to be challenged.
Mm.
And I challenge very heavy because he gave me the permission. And then the insights are coming.
Fantastic. So let's talk about very quickly then. Can you tell us about your business?
Uh, I run something called carob consult, which is, it comes from the traditional carob tree in Malta, which is very resilient tree. It can survive in rough weather conditions. If it's, wet or dry for a period of time, it also gives fruits. That's a very, we use them for many things. What I do at the moment is mainly individual and team coaching. I work with teams that don't function well, then I work with teams that needs to grow, and I work with individuals with different different coaching needs. I work locally and abroad with people. I've worked with very senior people to the very junior people, so I can't say I'm an only executive coach, which is not true. I enjoy this diversity of people. I work a lot with future leaders. The past 2 years, I was involved in a big program abroad of future leaders, but I also help senior leaders process things and have regular access to coaching. So it becomes part of their daily life. It's not a program, it's something that happens for them regularly across their journey.
Fantastic. Well, Dragan, I truly want to thank you for you agreeing to collaborate and participate in this important week and topic. What you have shared is definitely invaluable. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap. We have concluded Malta's first annual Neurodiversity Week. I hope you found each day with our guests inspiring, gained a greater understanding of how valuable neurodivergencies are for businesses, and that fostering inclusive environments is so important. Till next time, take a leap and transform.